How do you bring that Sunday afternoon at home in front of the fire, watching the old cowboy movies as a kid, into the 21st century? Well, the Umarex Renegade should do it. Hello and welcome to AAR on Air. Today I'm going to go down memory lane a little and bring us right up to date, all in one simple go. The Renegade is the latest offering from the guys at Umarex, and it successfully crosses the bounds of time and space, really. It has taken a real classic, the underlever, and thrown it into the modern day. Firstly, let's take a look at the old underlevers to refresh our memories and then see just what the difference is. Now, whilst I'm not the type to get all dressed up and start line dancing with my 6-shooter strapped to my hip, I really must admit to being a real fan of the Cowboy type range from Umarex. I love the Colt SAA revolvers. The feel and the action is one of the most satisfying on any CO2 I know. I could sit and play with the action all day and not even need to put gas in it or pellets in the shells. It's that satisfying. Then along came the pellet firing underlever, which used the by now familiar Umarex 8-round magazine, and I just had to have one. I still love it, and that one's mine. And then they brought out a multitude of finishes, and they just look amazing. But something was just missing. The shells. Well, the revolver used shells, so why not the underlever then? Lo and behold, Umarex hit the spot and brought out the shell ejector, and the world just became a better place. Well, it did for an old git like me, but there was something missing for the gamers and, dare I say, the millennials and the like. The ones who know more about John Wick than John Wayne. Where is the scope rail, the silencer option, and an all black finish? As always, be careful what you wish for with Umarex, because it's likely to appear like a Terry Pratchett god. Sometimes I swear they're listening more intently than Alexa in the corner of your lounge. Scary, but nice all at the same time. So, straight from Call of Duty, whatever that may be, we have the Renegade. Time for the walkaround as usual. Now this one is all black with no woodwork in sight. It has that sense of function over aesthetics, but they have managed to keep that original shape and even thrown in a John Wayne style loop for it for that single action load swing. A word of warning here, don't try it if you do fit a silencer, otherwise it's likely to involve a trip to the dentist at the very least. Starting from the front then, the first thing you notice is no front sight and the addition of a 1/2-inch UNF thread for that silencer option I mentioned. Now, it isn't too loud without the silencer, but any sound is greatly reduced with the inclusion of one. To what level is dependent upon what silencer you add, of course. Moving back down, the first thing you come to is that black polymer forestock with a Picatinny oblique weaver rail for your preferred choice of sighting aid. Again, there is no rear sight on this, so unless you're a seasoned shooter from the hip type of individual, then you're going to need to add a scope, red dot or the like. If you choose to use a scope, the one thing you need to be mindful of is the rail is set quite far forward and you will need to get the scope back a little, which may have a bearing on the scope or mounts that you choose. And also that shell ejecting port will need to be kept clear to prevent jamming or potential damage to your scope. It is quite possible, but not just a straightforward pick any scope and stick it on it kind of approach. This point does bring us straight into the shell ejecting port, which really is half of the appeal of this little CO2 eating rifle. When in action, you get to see all the mechanism of the eject and the load of the shells, which have previously been loaded in through the side port. Umarex do supply you with 10 shells, but it's always a good idea to get a few more to help keep the fun going faster and for longer. I'll come to those in a little while. The hammer is behind this, and so is the safety, which is clear, precise and positive, with the usual red dot for fire and a capital F and a white dot for safe and also an S. The rear buttstock is again polymer and also holds two 12-gram CO2s that power this up. Let's take a look at loading, powering and the action a little closer. The butt pad has a round disc that needs depressing and a quarter turn rotating, and even though it has a cutout for a coin or tool to do this, it should be grippy enough for you to easily do this with either your finger or your thumb. If not, just use a coin. Once this has been rotated, then it can be removed from the butt pad, revealing the CO2 mechanism. You will need to unscrew the silver threaded CO2 piercing part using the supplied hex key built into the butt pad. Once undone, place two CO2s in back to back. Then return and tighten the CO2 piercing part, and you can tighten it up again with the hex key that forms part of the butt. Once you're done, drop back in your butt pad and return through 90 degrees. Now this action will pierce both the 12-gram CO2s and power up the rifle. Now using the CO2s obviously is going to be a lot cheaper than using an 88-gram one that you have in the original. And of course you've got the option to use one full one and one empty CO2 depending on how much you think you're going to be shooting it. Using two, however, does not give double power. Using one or two makes no difference. The only difference it makes is how many shots you get, and you're going to get roughly between 50 and 60 per 12-gram CO2. Next up, preloading the 10 supplied shells. This is a simple process of dropping in your preferred pellets into the back of each one. Lighter ones for more feet per second if that's what you were looking for, or a standard weight or heavier one if you prefer. It's worth noting that the power you're going to get from this 177 cal pellet spitter is not going to be suitable for pest control and is really a fun plinker rather than any out-and-out serious target or pest control air rifle. Once the shells are all loaded up, then slide them in through the side loading port. Until you've got all 10 shells loaded. Then cock the gun with that oversized underlever and your first shell will be dropped into the chamber ready. From here, it's just fun firing and flinging shells, which will empty very quickly all over your floor. one sensible thing to do with these shells is to just make sure they're all clean before you reload them back into the gun and potentially cause any issues. Common sense, really. And there you have it, a modern underlever, which I believe is referred to as something like the Mark II carbine in that game. Target work. Well, I'm going to use plinking type targets more than anything else, because that's what this is all about. I think the word I would use is satisfying. Very satisfying and great fun. Whilst we're looking at it, I should put this over the chronograph just for good measure. Using the lighter BSA 6.64 non-lead pellets, it saw 571 feet per second, which is 4.81 foot-pounds or 6.52 joules. Then I tried the heavier gold stars at 8.64 grains, and it saw 537 feet per second, which is 5.53 foot-pounds or 7.5 joules. So fast enough for some plinking target work, but not for any pest control as previously mentioned. I've said it before and I don't mind saying it again. I love it when a company is prepared to do something different, and one thing you can rely on Umarex doing is pushing the envelope out and not being worried. They are innovators and do try to satisfy all consumers out in the marketplace, and I'm so glad they do. I like this updated version. It gives you more options with that silencer option and scope or red dot rail without the need to buy additional extras to try and fit a scope. It has a rewarding feel and action of the shell ejecting mechanism. It takes the 12 gram CO2s, which are cheaper than the 88 gram. Okay, so it's not an out and out target gun and should never be bought for that reason. It's a blinker, a fun gun, and has the options like no other has before it. I like it, and I can see just exactly where it will fit and perhaps where it won't, but that won't bother Umarex. Good on you. Well, that's it from me. Please give us the old thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe, share and hit the old alarm bell. Continue the chat on these forums, and the usual merch and chat can also be found here on the AAR website. The usual thanks, of course, to Vector Air, who are constantly stepping up to the mark to supply me with these guns. And of course, thank you for watching. Stay safe and shoot safe, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Anyone for a spot of line dancing? Bye for now.